Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and in a recent video I talked about the way I take notes on my books and I collect notes about my reads at the end of each reading experience. And one thing I did not mention in that video is that sometimes with certain books, once I'm done reading them, in the file where I collect all my notes, I also write a very short summary. That happens in particular with books whose plot or where certain elements of the plot I maybe think that sometime in the future I may forget about them. For instance, recently I reread the New York Trilogy, and one of the things that struck me about that rereading is that while many things about the book had stayed with me since my first read, I had completely, in all honesty, I had completely forgotten the plot, especially of the second and third novel in that trilogy. And connected to this is the fact that try it. If you're a fan of the New York Trilogy, try this exercise and see if you get a different result. But one thing I noticed is that when you try and write a summary of the plot of these three novellas, what you get is something that does not quite make sense, and you really realize how the plot of these things are really absolutely nonsensical. Make no mistake, that's part of the fascination of the whole thing, the way these plots are surreal and bizarre and clearly have deeper mysteries hidden within them. And it's also a truth universally acknowledged that when you write a summary or a synopsis of anything, everybody hates to do that. You know, the synopsis of any kind of story, no matter how thrilling or interesting, it's going to make it sound as if it's dull and boring. That's the reason why we read books and we do not read one paragraph synopses. At the same time, with the New York Trilogy in particular, because of the surreal nature of these plots, yeah, they do not quite make sense when you try to reduce them to two sentences. They sound like jokes. And I get the impression that David Mazzucchelli had the same impression, the same realization when he was working on the comic book adaptation of City of Glass, the first novella in the New York Trilogy. In the introduction to my edition of the comic book, Art Spiegelman actually says that Mazzucchelli had no problem understanding the story of City of Glass, and in fact, yeah, City of Glass's plot is not hard to follow. Never at any point during the book you are unsure about what's going on. You always follow the characters very clearly, but he had issues locating the deeper mystery at the heart of the book, and I can completely relate with that. That is a book, because of its cryptic nature, because of the way its several mysteries interact with one another, it's clearly a book that hides deeper mysteries and hides a deeper meaning in the same way as the actions of certain characters that you're going to know if you've read the New York Trilogy. The actions of these characters hide deeper meaning in the same way. There's something hidden underneath all that, and it's very difficult to point your finger exactly at what that is. It's part of what makes this book so fascinating and entertaining, the way you have to keep guessing at what's going on and the way you're never sure you're really getting the point of the New York Trilogy. It's part of what makes it so great. It's one of the reasons why I compare it so easily to Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose. The fact that both of these books begin with the narrator explicitly telling you that they are only going to give you the facts, they're only going to give you signs, phrases, a story, and that if there's a deeper mystery, the story, it's not for the story to tell, really, it's for the reader to say, and that's, once again, it's part of the fun. All of this, what I'm trying to say, also means that I'm very skeptical about the possibility of adapting the City of Glass into a comic book. It seems to me that a story of that type, so heavily metafictional, with its interaction between its different components, between the fact that there's a character in there called Paul Auster, but that he's not the narrator, and that of course the author is also Paul Auster, and that it intertextualizes with several different literary texts, from the Don Quixote to the works of Milton, for instance, and such. All of these things make this novella and the trilogy itself quintessentially literary. It's the same thing that happens with the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, famous horror writer of cosmic horror. H.P. Lovecraft's horror is quintessentially literary in the way it presents these cosmic absurdities that you can't quite comprehend, because comprehending them would drive you insane. These types of things can only be effectively conveyed through a lengthy exposition and by immersing yourself in the mind of a person or a narrator, and you can only achieve that through literature. When movies or video games or board games try to give you Lovecraftian horror, they usually do that by showing you people that are batshit crazy, or lots of gore, or slimy monsters, and all of these things are there in Lovecraftian horror, but they're not quite the point. Not really. The same way, the mysteries at the heart of City of Glass are absolutely here in the comic book adaptation by Karasik and Mazzucchelli, but they're not quite the point. And City of Glass in itself is it's quintessentially literary as a story. And once again, Spiegelman in the introduction also mentions that several movie adaptations have all failed because of that reason, I think, because it's really difficult to translate this story in a different medium. If it's possible, Karasik and Mazzucchelli managed to do it. This is really the best comic book adaptation of City of Glass you could possibly hope for. It conveys its stories and its mysteries, although for reasons of length it had to sacrifice a few elements of it. And the way it conveys this story it's very ordered grid of panels that occasionally collapse, and the way the most mundane and simple of illustrations occasionally hide meanings that may produce deeper meanings if you stare at them, if you focus upon them. All of these things translate as effectively as possible the bizarre nature and the cryptic and surreal nature of City of Glass in comic book form. But the bizarre thing, and the thing that makes this review very difficult, and the reason why I'm refilming it actually, the first time I filmed it I wasn't happy with it, is that it's very difficult for me to make two different points. The first one is that this is not in any way subordinated to the source material. It's not like this is inferior to City of Glass, either because of, I don't know, literature's superiority to comic books, that's not the point at all, or because the book is always best. Those kinds of ideas, not at all. And in fact, it's the brilliance of these things shines through, and I'm sure comic books fans and fans of the medium and the way the medium plays with its tools and with its structure, once again I mentioned that those grids that keep collapsing, you're going to have a hell of a good time and lots of fun with this. At the same time, the other point I want to make is that to me this doesn't quite make sense if you haven't read the New York Trilogy. This is the kind of book you should really be familiar with the source material if you're going to enjoy fully. I'd really be interested in hearing from people who have read this book without reading the novella by Auster, City of Glass. But yeah, my impression is that you're going to miss lots of the fun. Maybe you're not going to see exactly what the fuss is all about and what the deal is with the plot. I would definitely recommend you check out the New York Trilogy first. But once again, this was named one of the 100 most important comic books of the century by some important people. So once more, it's not just, I don't know, fan service for people who enjoyed the novel. It's a dignified and amazing work of art in its own right. It's confusing. What do you think? What was your impression of City of Glass, the comic book adaptation? Is it genius? Is it just that I don't fully get it, which is 100% possible, by all means? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you as always for watching, guys. In a second you're going to find links to my review of the New York Trilogy, and also to that video I mentioned where I talk about the way I take notes on books and such. And once more, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, consider subscribing, it will be great. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.